Let's start in Nigeria. Its recession deepened in the third quarter with a 2.24% contraction in GDP. Oil production fell to an average of 1.63 million barrels of crude a day, down from 1.69 million in the second quarter. The economy slid into recession for the first time in 25 years in the second quarter, when a decline in crude prices contributed to a 2.06% contraction. Crude sales make up roughly two-thirds of government revenue, and that really is the Achilles heels here. Nigeria's economy could expand by 2.5% next year, but if, and only if, it can produce 2.2 million barrels of crude a day consistently. Now, that's a level at which the government made its budget funding calculations. The non-oil sector grew by 0.03% in real terms in the third quarter. Still dismal, but better than nothing. Let's find out exactly where this economy goes from here. Deji Badmus joins me now live from Lagos. Deji, this is a pretty important start to the week for Nigeria, with the CBN's Monetary Policy Committee meeting happening. We're expecting a rate decision tomorrow. The policy rate is currently at 14%. But given these dismal GDP data, should we expect some sort of easing from the central bank tomorrow?
Well, Brahma, I doubt very much we're going to see any kind of interest rate cut at all, because the CBN governor was at a function here in Lagos on Saturday, and that question actually propped up, and the CBN governor specifically said, well, left to him, that he doesn't think there will be any interest rate cut at all, even though he said that was just his opinion, that he wasn't speaking for the CBN board and the members of the Monetary Policy Committee. But we also know that the CBN's governor's position now weighs very highly at that committee, and so we just wait and see. But if we were to judge from what the CBN governor has been saying, I do not think there will be any rate cut at all, because the CBN governor actually said it wouldn't make sense at all to cut down rates now, especially now that inflation rate itself is at an all-time high of 18.3%, that it just would not be supportive at all, and that cutting interest rate at this moment will just make things worse. So he doesn't see that happening, but then we wait and see what the other members of the Monetary Policy Committee would have to say about that.
Indeed. Looking at Nigeria from an outsider's perspective, why are capital controls still in place nearly 6 months after the Naira was floated? I mean, doesn't the CBN see these as doing more harm than good to the wider economy? And not just that, but also to the investor perception of Nigeria?
Well, the bottom line is that the CBN doesn't see it from that perspective. The CBN does not believe, the CBN governor made it very clear that even at the time when it announced the flexible exchange rate policy and, of course, the float, it made it very clear that, that it was still going to impose some kind of capital controls. And recently, CBN officials have been speaking about this issue as well, making it clear that there's nowhere in the world where you would expect that a central bank would just allow market forces now to determine, to drive it forex market, that at some point there must be some kind of control. And then let us look at some of the controls that the CBN, for instance, has imposed. I'm talking about capital controls now. Take, for instance, one very big issue that people have been talking about is the number of items, 41 items, as a matter of fact, prevented from accessing the official forex market. Manufacturers have been pushing for the lifting of this ban of the 41 items, that it is making it difficult for them to produce. But the CBN has countered that, saying what its position is basically aimed at encouraging import substitution, and that if there's no if there's no form of control at all, it just things might have been even worse than they are now. So the CBN has consistently maintained that these capital controls are needed, and it will continue to maintain these controls just to make sure things do not spiral out of control. Rama?
Indeed. Of course, there will be a fairly interesting debate on that particular subject, given that Egypt, of course, did float its currency as well. Thank you for the update. That's Deji Badmus live in Lagos.